We're going to continue to explore shapes and the boundaries they represent today. This time, though, we're going to push some boundaries. Hey Trailblazer, I'm Kelly. Welcome back to Crooked Path Studios, where healing isn't linear and neither is art. This is our second practice exploring shape, and I've linked the first one in the post for Substack and at the end of the video if you're on YouTube. We're exploring shape not only to expand our own visual language, but to also explore the boundaries that come with chronic illness.
Let's do our check-in.
You're going to need your shape journal or a page from your shape journal that has some empty spots on it that you can fill in. And we're going to add a shape to our journal that, we started these journals in the last practice. So draw a shape that represents your most annoying symptom. And just draw the shape that comes to mind when you think of your most annoying symptom. And as some of you know, my most annoying symptom is brain fog, but also PEM, so post-exertion malaise. And I think today I'm going to draw that because I've been having some flares of that lately. Quite a lot. Usually I can do some light activity, but lately not so much. So let me just see. If I can get the cap off of this. Oh my God. Okay. That might actually cause some PEM for me, so we'll see what happens. Okay. It's one of these blobby forms that I have been drawing. Not sure. I need to be blobbier. Puddlier. Blob. There. A blob shape. So for today's practice, you're going to need colorful paper and neutral plain paper. So something colorful, you can use magazines. They have plenty of colorful pictures in them. Just remember, we're not cutting out the actual picture, right, of anything in the magazine. You're just going for the color. So if you wanted brown, you would cut that out. I am going to be using these colorful pieces of copy paper that we have in my house and some construction paper. Those work great. For the neutral papers, you're going to need anything that, like I said, is neutral. This is just a security envelope with a lovely black and white pattern on it. And these are great, and they come in the mail, and they're free. Any magazines with text, so just black and white text. Again, this is going to give you a neutral background. So anything like that, any magazines that have text, you can even use the ones that Good Housekeeping has plenty of text in it that you can use. You will also need your glue sticks or stick, some scissors to cut, or you can use an X-Acto knife if you want to do that. And you'll need a sketchbook to glue everything into. Now, you also might need a ruler if you want to make some straight lines and a square to work in and not work on the whole page. So that is up to you. So let's go ahead and get started. The first shapes practice made me uncomfortable because I don't start my work with shapes. And I found it a bit frustrating because it was so unfamiliar to me. So I decided to push that artistic and personal boundary and start this practice by collaging a background first rather than using the white paper in my sketchbook.
Making a quick background collage like this is something that I'm familiar with. I like to do it as a warm-up or to start a piece. I drew a 5x7 rectangle and marked it off with painter's tape. Sometimes this kind of boundary makes my creative practice easier for me, and working small helps me manage my energy. Use your found papers to collage a background in the shape that you have made, whether it's a square or a rectangle. Fill up that space. I tend to respond to the tone of the background papers, and maybe that comes from the density of the text or the actual color of the paper. You can think of this as putting a puzzle together, a puzzle made with torn papers that each have their own organic and geometric shapes. I find this form of collage more intuitive, and this was the starting point for pushing some of my artistic boundaries in this practice.
Okay, now to glue it down. All right, so I have glued this down, and now we're going to go back to our shape library and pick some shapes that we want to actually cut out and lay over this. And then I also have some leftover pieces from the earlier shape cutting. These were, the in-between pieces, and I'm going to see what these do. All right, I have cut out some shapes out of the construction paper and also from the secondary shapes that happen when you cut things out of paper.
Remember, the negative space left by the shape you cut out is often just as interesting and can be a shape on its own. Now begin auditioning your cutout shapes onto your collaged background. Start to notice and respond to the secondary shapes that are created. Those are the spaces between your cutout shapes. Being playful with collage is part of the process. You don't have to glue anything down immediately. Just play with the different relationships being made between the shapes. I cut some more shapes after going for a walk and noticing the shapes of vines and some mosses. And this opened up some more possibilities to respond to secondary shapes. These are the liminal spaces between boundaries, and there is maybe more freedom or opportunity in those secondary shapes. Maybe nobody is paying attention to those spaces between the boundaries. You may have noticed each of the visual elements, whether it's color, line, shape, form, pattern, they each build on the other one. And once you get to shape and form, you're also working with composition to bring everything together. Keep your composition intuitive by noticing the cutout shapes and how they interact with the collage background. Notice if they blur the boundaries or highlight part of the background and make it stand out when it hadn't before. Or maybe the cutout shapes erase a boundary in the background or on another shape.
So I got these glued down, and I think I need something here, and I think I need to bring this brown up there. So I'm going to I cut this out. It repeats this shape. It's brown, brings it up there, gives it another layer. So let's glue that down. I've got some of these are sticking up. Fix that.
Starting this practice by ripping paper made it more familiar to me and not so precious, really. I could safely get out of my comfort zone and then come back to it. I could push some of my artistic boundaries, but still explore familiar themes like layers. And these shapes layered over each other and the text underneath of them start to tell a visual story. Maybe one about synthesis and constraint and making the unfamiliar into the familiar.
I am learning a lot because I just don't work this way. I don't make shapes this way. I let the rip and the tear make them versus me thinking about the shape and initiating a shape. I tend to respond to the shape that happens, I guess. So this is kind of interesting. So let's do our reflection before we do our checkout. Which boundaries make things more visible to us and to others? How might we need to make some of our boundaries more visible? What visual stories are your shapes telling? With chronic illness, we have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable quite often. So I'm wondering, How did this practice of working with shapes help you get out of your comfort zone? And finally, what stories do we tell ourselves that set up unnecessary boundaries that we might want to rethink? For our checkout today, let's go back to our shape journal and let's add one shape, draw one shape that represents your energy right now. Without trying to make it look like anything, draw the shape your energy has right now. So I don't know, a dip and then it comes back up kind of thing. That's what my energy has right now. In the next video, we'll make some postcards out of cut shapes. Until then, if you're looking for a therapeutic arts community, consider joining my wayfinding community on Substack. We have monthly open studios on Zoom, there's a private chat space, and there's workshops. You receive creative practices like this one in your email every month, along with my monthly life lessons essays and special members only practices. If you're watching on YouTube, I've pinned the link to wayfinding in the comments and in the description. And if you're part of the Unfolding Path community on Substack, you can just hit the upgrade button at the end of the post. Until then, keep on your crooked path.